Hello, 40 Waters. Longtime listeners of the show will know that I'm a big believer in education, especially music education, and I'm excited to announce that this episode is brought to you by TrueFire. I've partnered with TrueFire to bring you an opportunity to get into their lessons at an affordable rate in a way that's going to help you, help the podcast, and get you playing more guitar. I'm excited to say that you can use the code 40WATT, 40WATT, at checkout to get 40% off your first or next purchase through TrueFire. That includes their all access pass to have access to all of their lessons and videos and jams. I highly recommend it. I use it myself. I'm a huge fan. I truly believe in TrueFire's motto of live, practice, and play. Please use the link below to get started, and happy learning. This episode is brought to you by my Patreon supporters. There's a wonderful crew of people over on Patreon giving money every month to make sure that this show and this podcast happen and cut my overhead costs so that I can keep doing it. I can't express my thanks enough for their support and their belief in what we're doing over here. And if you'd like to join them and help support this podcast, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can support this show. And actually, now that we are starting to get sponsors for the episode, my $3 supporters will get the episodes ad-free. If you want to support at a $5 level, you'll get ad-free episodes and you will get additional content every week. I thank all of you that have given money to help keep this going, and I thank all of you that are going to become supporters and help make sure this show keeps happening. Thank you so much. All right, 40 Waters, welcome. Another episode of the podcast. I appreciate you hanging out. I appreciate you spending your time with us. Super excited about the episode today. Remember, just like at the top of the episode, you can go over to the website, 40wattpodcast.com. And see all the things. You can find all the links. You can also find us over on the link tree, linktr.ee/40wattpodcast. And also, if you are so inclined, you can help support the show by going over to patreon.com/40wattpodcast. And I will read out the names of all of our Patreon supporters every episode, and I'll catch you. You'll catch that here at the end of the episode. And I appreciate all of you. In the meantime, we're going to get started into this episode. I'm super excited to have Dan Pilver from Lewitt Microphones. How are you, Dan?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Very well.
Thanks for having me.
You know, besides the camera failing at the beginning of this episode, I don't mind letting people see behind the curtain. Y'all, we hit record, and immediately my camera died. Apparently, my battery had not charged like I thought it had. So we figured it out. It's okay. I have a backup plan. This is how this works. You got to have backups on your backups. So Dan, you and I got introduced a little while back from a mutual friend, and we started talking. Wanted to get Lewitt on the show, and it's been interesting because since we started talking, there's been some major events in the life of Lewitt Microphones since the beginning. Before we started talking, y'all weren't in Sweetwater. Now you're in Sweetwater.
Mm-hmm.
That was a major thing. We talked about that a whole bunch. So we're gonna definitely talk about the microphones. But first things first, let's talk about you, who you are, how you got into. I know you're a guitar player. I know you're a performer. I see your live posts. How'd you get into music? How'd you find your way to Lewitt Microphones?
Well, so yeah, man. When I was a kid, I always wanted to be the famous guitar player on stage. Right? You got all the girls.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, when I was in middle school, I started playing guitar, and then I found that you could get in a band more easily if you play bass. So I did that for a while. I still do sometimes. I have a couple of basses behind me, but I went to university. I went to University of Connecticut, and during my time in college, actually in high school, I worked for a small independent shop, guitar shop around here, and I moved back to Connecticut, so that's where I live now. But yeah, I worked for a small independent shop, and then after I graduated high school, I went to work at a GC. I stayed there for like 8 years. It was fun. It was the most fun I ever had in a job at the time. It was fun, man. You work some long hours, and you just sell people instruments and make them really happy. And then you have time to go out to the bar afterwards or play with your friends. And I was playing in bands around the Hartford area and stuff. It was super cool. And then, after I finished school, I wasn't really 100% sure what I wanted to do. So I got approached by Gibson Guitars. If no one's familiar, a guitar company based in Nashville.
Oh, yes, this tiny little company based out of Nashville. Yeah.
It's a boutique builder. So I was the product specialist for Gibson for New England, New York, and Canada for about 6 years. And then I did a brief stint at In Music in Rhode Island, working for Denon, Marantz, and Rain. And then I spent the last 4 years and change at Isotope, which is a software developer in Boston who make awesome audio software for music production, post-production, that sort of thing. And then, in
fact, every listener of this podcast has listened to Isotope Mastering Suite, the Ozone Suite, because I run every episode through it.
You can tell how much Philip likes it because I'm not paying him to say this. I don't work there anymore.
He's not.
Yep.
I genuinely love that suite because it is super easy to use, and I don't have to be an expert to make it sound pretty decent.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about a lot of stuff nowadays, and we can unpack this quite a little bit more, as we kind of go, because there's a lot of similar ethos with some of these newer. I say newer, Isotopes been around for 20 years, but there's a lot of similarities between Lewitt and some of these other companies like Isotope and some others. So, but yeah, this year Lewitt approached me about opening up Lewitt in the U.S. as its own U.S. enterprise. So they're still based in Vienna, but we have a team here called Lewitt Inc. And I run that. So I'm the director of sales and marketing. So I've got a team of 2 salespeople and some marketing guys. Some guys are based in Boston. I got one of them in Nashville area, and then someone in Texas. So, and as Lewitt grows, which it's growing, one of the fastest growing mic companies in the world right now, which is pretty sweet for me.
That's awesome.
As we grow, obviously we'll add to our team. We'll have more of a presence everywhere. So, but it takes us up to the present.
I actually first became aware of Lewitt microphones through the guys over at 60 Cycle Hum.
Right on.
They used them for a little while there, and for a while I saw the logo on the microphone, had no idea what it was. Never even asked, it was never a thing. And then one episode they mentioned it, and I was like, oh, okay, that's what that is. And so then when Patreon supporter of the show, Kyle, brought up Lewitt and brought up your name, I was like, oh yeah, that'd be rad. Let's get them on. Let's talk about this thing, because a long time ago, yes, this is a guitar centric podcast, but it's definitely not just, hey, how much do you love burst guitars? You like 58 to 60 Les Pauls? Yes, we all do. They're heavy. They're okay. They're fine. I've played a half dozen of them. They're great. But I want to talk about more than that. And microphones are an area that is super fascinating to me, because I went through audio engineering school. I half-assed audio engineering school. Let's be honest. I make no bones about it. I was there to be a music major, and doing a interdisciplinary degree in music and audio engineering was the only way I was getting that degree at that school, because they did not have a BA in music track for a guitarist. So I was like, this will work. This gets me in the door to play guitar in all the ensembles that have guitar and take music theory. But I did learn a ton about microphones and outboard gear and a bunch of stuff that I barely ever use anymore. But the microphone market is an interesting place. There was always this idea that, and I think in our conversations leading up to this episode, I think I even mentioned, it was like, there are more mics out there than Neumann, Royer, Shure, and Telefunken. You know what I mean? There's more out there than I don't remember if I even said Telefunken. I may have said a different one.
No, you did.
Yeah, and so it's been cool to see this new crop of technology come out that's pushing the envelope and doing something different. And the thing that got me where I knew I wanted you to have on the show when you started talking about Lewitt microphones is you don't compare them to other microphones. And that's that's an ethos of the company. You're not trying
Sure.
to rebuild the 414.
Right.
You're not trying to rebuild the U47. You're trying to be a new mic company making something new. What's that been like? How hard is that challenge?
Um, it's always a challenge to get people to pay attention to something if it's unfamiliar to them. The nice
Yeah.
thing with mics is, like there are certain constraints when it comes to their appearance and stuff where, nothing is super alienating, right? So like when you go, one of one of my favorite things to compare mics to. So you go to any like full featured music store, something that has pro audio and keyboards and drums. Um, if you look at a full music shop, like a department store, like a Macy's or Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom or something, mics are really probably the closest thing you can get to the jewelry section, right? Because they're a little bit smaller, and they're
Yeah.
visually striking. They're silver and black and chrome and gold. Sometimes a lot of them have gold grills. So they're smaller. They take up less space, and they're usually presented in a way. Sometimes they're in a glass case, and sometimes they're on a planogram where you can demo stuff. So it's the jewelry of the music store, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where you can. It's a lot like guitar pedals, where you can have 10, 20, 30 different mics, and they all have they'll do a little bit different thing. Um, and one of the things that I really like about what we do is, we don't lean on classic design, classic manufacturing, right? Like if somebody were to sell you a car, oh well, this one doesn't have airbags. It's got a 3-speed manual transmission and it's carbureted, so good luck in the wintertime. Maybe not so much in Mississippi, but up here in New England, good luck in the wintertime.
Yeah, it's rough in that 60-degree winter down here in Mississippi.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, but like, when you look at these, classic things like, CRT televisions, no one's going to pay top dollar for those. Nobody really wants them because they're bulky. There's a great place for classic cars and, and vintage instruments and stuff. And there's a great place for vintage microphones. It doesn't mean that you need to recreate that note for note, right? Like I wouldn't want to buy an economy car made to the same standards of like a six-cylinder Chevy Nova or something. I want it to be comfortable. I want it to be safe and reliable.
Right.
And as technology and time goes on, technology gets better and better and better. Manufacturing methods become more efficient, easier to manage, easier to automate. You get more consistent results and stuff. Like one U47 from the 60s is going to sound totally different than another one made on the same line, maybe even in the same day. So you get more consistency. But those things were classics, and they're classics now, because they were really pushing the envelope back then. It was something that was totally different, new radical design, something that really kind of stretched beyond what was conventional at the time, and they cemented themselves as classics. And it's hard to do that now when you're looking back on the past. It's difficult, because if you're just making either a copy or an iteration of something classic, you're not really moving anything forward. And there are so many wonderful advancements in technology and manufacturing that are at your disposal. You can make better quality products that kind of do push things forward for a lot less money, a lot less time, and you can be way more consistent with it. And that's that's what this is like our Model T moment, right? We've automated stuff that was impossible to do 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's one of those things. It's like we hold on to these traditions. I was listening to, actually, there was a Rhett Scholl put a video out today.
He's great.
Yeah, he put out a video on his channel. That's he, Rick Beato, the guy at Dojo Guitar Repair, whose name is escaping me right now, and Keith from 5 Watt World, and they were discussing vintage guitars, and they're like, are vintage guitars still going to be valuable when all the boomers are gone? Was the conversation, the essence of the conversation. And it's like, are those things that are classics now that we put all this stock into? It's funny because they talked about cars too. All these things that are classics now, are they still going to be the things that are of interest later? And I think yes, that we're not here to have that conversation. But there's also, you look at the things that are considered the most valuable, and I'm going to say some things that are going to piss some people off, so get ready, y'all. And I think I've said some of this on this podcast before. The things we revere, the 50s Les Pauls, the 50s and 60s Strats and Telecasters, some of the 50s and 60s Gretches, those kinds of things. Fender and Gibson are making better guitars today than they ever did.
Oh, 100%.
And 60s.
Yeah, 100%.
But we don't revere them because they're new.
Yeah.
It's like, just because it's old and vintage, and yes, maybe someone classic that you really admire used that to make music, to do the thing. That doesn't mean that's the only way to do it, and that you have to do it that way, and that you can't get that vibe on a new piece of gear. You don't have to go to that older thing to recreate, I don't know, to get that quality of a result. And you see it in guitars, especially. We're so reluctant to embrace new designs and to embrace new concepts. You see it in guitar effects pedals. I mean, Wampler just put out a new tube screamer last week. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Oh, wait, and so did Origin Effects.
Yeah.
And so did, it's one of those things. It's like we don't quite, we're slow to want to change. And
yeah, I mean,
that's very...
Humans are resistant to change. It's a human thing, right? It's funny you say that, though, because it's 100% true. Like, when I worked for Gibson, they started doing the collector's choice reissue guitars. So when you look at, I'm going to go into guitar speak for a little bit. So when you go look at the historic reissues, like if you just pull a regular 59, an R8, R9, RO off the rack, I mean, it's basically a mean set of measurements from a variety of instruments that they would acquire and measure. Whether it's just the feel of the profile of the neck, the average weight, the grade of the top, that kind of stuff. They would essentially just take an average, and basically make a really good approximation of a 58 or 59. And then you had the collector's choice ones, which were analyzed by the custom shop, and it would be specifically recreated for one specific guitar, right? So I remember the best example of that was I was at Music Messe in 2014 in Frankfurt, Germany, and they had just released, or they just announced the Dutch Burst, which was a 1960 Les Paul. It was owned by a Dutch collector, and he was there at the show. And they brought over the reissue, and I played it. It was fabulous. And then I played the original, and it was just like, it was, in terms of sound, it was indistinguishable. It didn't sound any different. But I would take the reissue all day long because it just played better. It played better. It felt more substantial.
Yep.
It just felt like something I would want to play for hours, probably sitting down, because I don't like Les Pauls.
They're heavy.
I don't own a Les Paul. I worked for Gibson for 6 years. I don't own a Les Paul.
I don't own one anymore. Yeah.
I had a few, but I have a Firebird. I've got a 335 behind me. An SG. Actually, no, I do. That's not true. I do own a Les Paul. I have a Junior, so it's half a Les Paul. But yeah. It's one of those things where, like, 100% technology's made the quality of instruments better. I mean, when I first started playing electric guitar, when I was like 7th grade, we're getting a Squier Strat, and it was at its absolute best, it was mediocre. And then now you pull down a $400 Squier off the wall of any music store, and it blows away half the stuff you could get for $1,000 20 years ago. Unbelievably good. Just, unreal. And same thing with Epiphone. I remember we used to say, oh, yeah, when I was working at the music store, Epiphone make great guitars for the money. Bullshit. They
Yeah,
make
not
great
anymore.
guitars. Period. They're great.
Yep.
I bought a Riviera, one of the new reissues, last year. It's awesome. It's like great mini humbuckers. It sounds good. Like it feels great. The just the overall look of it's like period correct. The inlays are they're in the right orientation now. They didn't used to be. So yeah, I mean they do some really phenomenal stuff for under $1,000. There's never been a better time to buy an instrument than right now, and that'll be the case
Yeah.
for for the foreseeable future. Right now will always be the best time to buy something new.
Yeah. I last year I bought one of the Epiphone Firebirds,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I've since moved it because I did a whole lot of decluttering only to reclutter my gear life this year
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we do.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I gigged that thing and I loved that guitar.
Sure.
And for $550, I bought an instrument that stacked up against anything else I played. To put it this way, when the gigs I took out my Novo and my Novo Cirrus J and my Epiphone Firebird for a couple of gigs and did not feel like I was sacrificing anything on the songs that I picked up the Firebird.
Yeah, that's great.
It it was a great instrument, and we're talking $550 for a super solid guitar, and that extends and to bring it back around. That is not just guitars, of course. That's what I'm most familiar with, but
Sure.
we're seeing the best of everything
Mm-hmm.
that's out there today, and the most variety of things out there. Microphones. When I was in music school and we would talk microphones, you talked I set them at the top: 414, U47, U87. You talked your MD 421, your SM57 for your dynamic mics, and of course the venerable Royer 121. And it was almost like those were the only mics that existed, and for a long time they almost were. That it isn't like the selection. There was more than that, but now we have so many options. I watch actually Andrew Masters. I've watched a whole bunch of his videos. I was watching one of his earlier today, Andrew Masters studio tours, and I actually think he's done some stuff with some Lewitt microphones as well, and I get really impressed with his studio tours. And it's great to see some of these studios that have like the classic gear, the really classic stuff, and you see a few that's got like, oh, they've got a legit LA2A, or
Mm-hmm.
I think one today had like an LA3A just sitting on the floor.
Damn.
Like I've never even seen an LA3A.
There's one better.
Original 1176s and Neve consoles and yada yada yada. What I really love to see are these guys out there making incredible music with warm audio,
Mm-hmm.
with Lewitt microphones, with new stuff, because they're not so tied to the tradition of, oh, it's got to be this.
Sure.
And I like that y'all are embracing that. Like you want to be this new voice.
Yeah. Well, it's there's a place for classic reissues that are more affordable, like Warm. They make some really great stuff. Telefunken, obviously, if you're going to go higher end, which is in my backyard, living in Connecticut. They're right down the street, and I have a few friends who work there. They're a great company. They make some really amazing stuff, and it's probably the most accurate recreation of a U47 or an Elam 251 you can get. Period. Like I personally, and this is my own personal opinion, divorced from Lewitt here. I think that their C12 is better than the actual AKG branded reissue. Like
Oh wow,
it sounds better. And you pay a price for it. It's their high end stuff is like 10 grand, but they make some really cool things at a lower price point too. That they're not reissues or anything. They're like classic designs, classic style circuits. And there's a place for all of that. I have a few Telefunken mics myself. there's a lot of stuff out there that's really cool, really compelling, and would complete anyone's mic locker in a very nice way. But the thing is, like, a lot of it is redundant, right? Everybody wants a 47 or an 87 or a 414, or everyone has some sort of approximation of that. And does the world need another one? No, not absolutely not. So we go for stuff that's different. It pushes different boundaries of what microphones can do. We have some really interesting stuff that have really cool features. That we launched the LCT 1040, which is our flagship microphone this year, which has 4 completely distinct all analog tube settings. It's a tube mic, right? And yep. we still like classic sounds, but you can get a classic sound with a modern design and with modern manufacturing and tech. So the 1040, you have a clear setting, a warm setting, a dark setting, and a saturated setting, and they're not meant to sound like any particular mic that exists already. It's something that's totally tunable. You can blend in a crystal clear FET circuit into the tube circuit, or you can go all FET, which obviously takes away the tube settings. But
right,
you can totally sweep that from all FET to all tube. I mean, personally, for me, I like using the 1040 in saturated mode and get all those like really rich harmonic overtones, and then I just add in a little bit of the FET to kind of brighten up the top end and make it really kind of sparkle through. And it has a the power supply. With like most tube mics, you can control the polar pattern settings, and it's a multi-pattern mic, of course. So it's got omnidirectional cardioid, wide cardioid, super cardioid, figure 8, and iterations in between. The top of the power supply comes off, and you can connect via an XLR to make it a remote. So you can keep the power supply in your control room, or so you can keep the remote for the mic in your control room, but keep the mic and the power supply in a vocal booth, and you don't have to go back and forth or rely on an artist to make the adjustments for you. So
I didn't even see that feature.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah. Actually, my friend Jeff, who runs Manchester Music, which is a great YouTube channel, he just did a complete rundown on it. I released it today on YouTube, so you should go check that out. Hi Jeff.
Check that one out.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. So it's really cool stuff, and everything is built and designed with purpose or over-engineered, and because we use a lot of modern manufacturing techniques, you get some advantages of that. Obviously, the cost goes way down because stuff isn't being hand soldered by 4 people in a dimly lit room in Austria somewhere. It's all everything's automated, right? So you get way more consistency. And one of the things that we do with a lot of our microphones is we have like what we call perfect match. And basically the tolerances we have are so tight that if you bought, let's say an LCT 540S, which is our kind of our middle high end solid state mic, goes for about $699 US. It has the lowest self noise out of any mic available today. We actually had to develop new testing equipment just to measure its self noise. So if you want something that's like made for like a lot of processing, or if you just want super crystal clear sound for like a piano overhead, or you're doing a lot of voiceover work, it's a great mic for that. But if you bought one of those now, and then you waited 5 or 6 years and you bought another one, it would still be a perfectly matched pair. That's why we don't sell any of our mics other than our 2 small diaphragm condensers, the LCT 040 and LCT 140 Air, as matched pairs, because you can buy one now, you can buy one years from now. It's completely unnecessary. Which is really, I'm proud of that. It's something that I think is, really forward thinking. And one of the core beliefs that I have, and this is coming from, my last couple of jobs, music has just become so much more democratized. Like, you can get good quality recordings without having to book expensive studio time. in, as things progress further and further, stuff like technical expertise and like, gatekeeping that kind of information from people becomes more and more removed as a barrier. And so what's next is cost, right? So if you can't swing a matched pair of microphones for, $14, $16, $1,800, you can buy one now and you can buy one later on, and you'll still get the same, level of quality. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's very cool.
yeah, and so looking at that, I'm glad you touched on cost because that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Microphones, and so when I first got started, I had, I'm in engineering school, audio engineering school. I bought an interface. I had M Audio M Box. It
Oh
was great. Um, back in the day, Firewire. Oh yeah, that
yeah.
super high tech Firewire. Um, and I needed microphones, so I bought this set because it was affordable. The AKG C1000 and C3000. They came as a matched set, which is an odd thing to match, large and a small diaphragm condenser. And I don't remember what I paid for it, but it was a lot to a college student. But
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't that much as far as microphones go. And I'm gonna be honest, those mics were not great. They just weren't. Uh, the C1000 especially, I had nothing but problems with. Not knocking AKG; they're a great company. They make some great products, but that one I had a lot of problems with. And the 3000 was fine. It picked up audio and recorded it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't fantastic. Uh, but looking at, for example, the mic I'm using now, for listeners who who aren't watching the video, this is a Lewitt LCT 440 Pure. It's a $290 microphone, $270 microphone, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this microphone. I was telling you, I did some when it came in. I did some just test line recording and trying to see what sounds I can get out of it, see what it sounded like in Logic. And I'm in Mississippi, and AC is on all the time. I was worried about AC noise, and I was worried about um, the tone of my voice because y'all, you don't have to tell me. I know I've got this like annoying nasal upper register that I hate, and a microphone that picks up that, and I don't hate it like as much. I hate my voice. I'm sure everybody else deals with this too. I hate the sound of my own voice. Um, so I listened to those things, and then I got this great clear sound that I never got with the 3000, the C3000 by AKG. The C3000 always sounded like I was speaking through a moving blanket. It was just dull. I don't know how to describe it best, but it's like the difference between I don't know. I'm not gonna try. Y'all know what I mean. It's just doled out. It's like an old penny compared to like a brand new uncirculated penny. And like we use all these catchphrases in music. It was clarity, presence, airiness, or all these things. But y'all know what I mean. And I didn't get that with this. And this is for less than some pedals today. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this is less than I don't know. I'm trying to think of something super affordable. Microphones. Microphones are typically expensive. What's the SM58 now?
58's go for about
$130?
$100. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know of another small diaphragm, 1-inch diaphragm condenser at this price point that sounds this good.
I
And that I
appreciate you saying
appreciated. No, well, no, I'm a little out of the microphone
that.
game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting back into it now, but I remember looking back when I was in school and then after trying to find something I could afford because I knew I couldn't drop uh $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 on a really good large diaphragm condenser microphone. They're very expensive to get good. And suddenly, not only are guitars, like you said with Squire, you can pick a Squire $400 Squire off the rack, and it's better than almost any guitar I played in the early 2000s because I was playing what I could afford back then.
Sure.
Um, uh, you can pick up this microphone, and it's better than any. I'll be honest, better than anything I got to use as a student while I was at Delta State, because they just now, it was a new program when I started there, so they didn't have like the biggest mic locker ever. Now at MTSU they had tons of things that I don't want to talk about those, because I never got in the studios there. That's a whole other rant about the studio program at MTSU. But I think the cost efficiency today has changed the game. That democratization of music, that's
Mm-hmm.
what's happened. The price gatekeeping is gone. It's so much easier now. For $1,000 or less, you can get, actually way less, you can get a very good interface. You can
Sure.
use GarageBand or Audacity and get a good microphone, and you can make great recordings.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, geez, look at Logic, right? So
Yeah,
Logic being the big brother to GarageBand, it's what I use personally, right?
yeah, same.
When you look at Logic, I mean, I remember back in the day you could buy it in a store. It was before the App Store existed. Back in my day, so it was $1,000, and now I can go on the App Store and pay $199 for Logic, and I get uh, a tremendously powerful tool with tons of plugins and guitar amp models and virtual instruments and stuff. It's so accessible now, you know.
Yeah,
And it's funny. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this opportunity to plug this particular mic because we're using the same one.
yeah,
Um, I love this mic in particular. I have a couple favorites that we make. This is one of them, and it's my everyday mic, right?
yeah.
So this is the LCT 440 Pure. It's our bestseller, like our greatest hit, right? It goes for, at the moment, it goes for $269, pretty much everywhere. It comes with a shock mount. It comes with a pop filter, and the pop filter is magnetic, right?
Yeah.
So you're using the foam windscreen that it comes
Uh-huh.
with, which kind of softens things up a bit. But I record a lot of acoustic guitar in my chair here, and this boom arm is really long, so it just slides on. I could turn this thing upside down; it wouldn't move.
Yeah, I put the
But yeah,
foam
I
on
mean
it because I am genuinely a loud individual, and so anything to soften things a little bit helps for me.
right on.
Also AC. I'm running AC. I wanted
Sure.
to doubly make sure that it didn't pick it up.
Yeah, I'm pretty soft spoken, so I just use this. But yeah, so this is just, I mean, it's real basic, right? It's called the Pure for a reason, because it's
Mhm.
just a pure large diaphragm condenser. So you have no pad control, no high pass filter. It's just you plug it in, add phantom power, and go. So um, I'm glad you favorably compared it to a lot of other things. There's a great video floating around on YouTube right now by an influencer who does a lot of voiceover and like podcast how tos, that kind of stuff. A lot of
Yeah.
reviews of gear, and one of the standards for voiceover work is the TLM 103 from Neumann,
Oh
and it's a
yeah.
fantastic microphone. Like, it's been out for a long time. We're selling those when I was 18 years old at GC.
And you still
They
see them
go with,
all over the
yeah, of
place.
course. Yeah, absolutely. It's still immensely popular, and it with the shock mount, and the shock mount's enormous. It comes it doesn't come. I don't think it comes with it now, but yeah, it's like $1,300-$1,400, something like that. It doesn't come with a pop filter, but it's 3 or 4 times the price of one of these, right?
Yeah.
And when the guy did a side-by-side comparison test, he's like, it's the difference is negligible. The Lewitt, if anything, the Lewitt has a little more presence, a little more top end, and if you don't like that top end, it's very easy to simply EQ it to make it sound identical.
Right.
And that's a $1,300 microphone. Let's just say it's $1,300, because I don't feel like looking that up. It's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Real quick, it is actually going for $1,200 right now, but yeah.
Okay, gotcha, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I think I found the $1,000 difference though, or the $900 difference. It comes in a wood box. Come on, guys, you guys can ship in a wood box, right? Fancy wood box.
well, if anyone wants to pay me $1,000, I will gladly make them a nice wood box. So,
I love it.
And then you have to get something like a pop filter, right? So I have a Stedman here. This is actually the pop filter I prefer to use if I'm going to use a pop filter with it doesn't come attached to a mic.
Sure.
And these are great, but like, you add one of these onto a boom and it's in your front of your face. And, we make these intentionally very compact, because there's the lines, and we going back to the whole democratization of music and stuff now, we look at things like, is it camera friendly? This is a compact design. The pop filter is the size of the grill of the mic to make it much more camera friendly, because so many recording artists nowadays are also content creators. They promote themselves. They do live streams. They do podcasts. You have a bunch of guitars behind you. You're a musician. What are we doing right now? Right. So you're on camera.
This is it.
So why not have a great mic that doesn't have a bunch of obtrusive accoutrements to it to obscure your visage, right? So, and that's, I always have this off axis. So yeah, I mean, it's less visually distracting. And the camera friendliness of it is absolutely by design, because we want people to have a good experience recording, whether it's on camera or if it's in a recording studio. And I know people who do it for a living. They're audio engineers, tracking engineers, and they swear by this $269 microphone.
Yeah.
It's like a great all-rounder. It's like a Swiss Army knife. If something's not fitting the bill, now throw LCT 440 Pure on it, and it'll probably sound usable, if not pretty damn good. Right.
Yeah. So you mentioned that upper end, a little bit of sparkle, clarity, air, whatever. I once saw a chart where someone tried to chart out the frequencies for all of these descriptors. I'm like, that chart does me no good. I make these terms up as I go.
Sure. Same here.
So, but that's what I mean when I was talking about that nasaliness of my voice. That part of my voice, some microphones take it and decide that is all of my voice. It's like when you go to the caricature artist, when you're at you're on vacation and you stop and there's the guy doing all the portrait caricatures, and they find that one feature of yours. It's my nose. Y'all don't have to say anything. I know that they over accentuate. That peak in my voice is the thing that every microphone likes to take and run with it. And so anytime I find a microphone that can take that peak and doesn't like just jab it right back into my ear, I know I'm onto something. At least for me.
Sure.
I can only speak for me. I don't run a commercial studio where I've had a chance to put this microphone on, a half dozen different artists' voices or instruments or stuff. I can only tell you what works for me. And I really appreciate that sound, but I also think that upper top end, you mentioned acoustic guitars. That was the first thing I thought when I listened back to this microphone. It's like, I can't wait to try this on acoustic guitar, because I think it's going to sound really, really good, especially on my, I have a Larrivee DO5 that's a full body dreadnought. I think this mic will capture that guitar better than any mic I've tried, because most mics make that thing just sound like it starts to sound like this, like the nightclub that you're hearing from the outside. So I'm really excited to do that. But yeah, that's, you find mics that just work and do the job. And like you said, there's no extra switches. There's no extra nothing on it. You plug it in, phantom power, you go. And I love that. I don't want to have to mess with stuff. Just give me simple. As I've gotten older and maybe, a little more crotchety, I want less features. I just want the thing to do the thing. And like, I just want simplicity.
Yeah. And there's we make something for everybody, with respect to that. Like, this is as simple as it gets, but with the LCT 1040,
1040
you can really
incredible.
No, you can really dial something in like that. There's the usability and versatility is endless. We also make one I really like too. Probably my other favorite large diaphragm that we make is the LCT 640 TS, which is really cool. It's been out for a few years. I think we were the first to come to market with something like this. There've been a couple copies, or I wouldn't say copies. There've been several manufacturers that make something that have a similar feature set. That's a nicer way of saying it, right?
There you go. Yeah, that's much more polite.
Yeah, which is unusual for me because
some other makers were inspired by the design.
Yeah, no, yeah. So somebody found their muse in a Sound on Sound review. So this one is really cool because it's it's a multi-pattern mic, and
Mm-hmm.
we have some pretty cool stuff that we load into this. It has um, a clipping history. So say you're recording drum overheads or electric guitar cab or something that has a really high SPL.
Right.
If you clip the mic, it'll show that you did it, so you don't have to spend all of your time tracking. Say you're doing something for hours on end. If you see that
Oh,
red light, okay, stop. Let's redo it and move it further away or bring the level down. So
yeah.
that's kind of cool, knowing when you clipped something, right? You have 4 settings for high pass filter, 4 settings for pad, so you can really kind of fine tune it. Um,
Yeah.
4 meaning 3 and then flat, right?
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
yeah, then you have your standard omnidirectional, wide cardioid, super cardioid, and figure 8,
Yep.
which is pretty cool. But there's also something that's a little bit different. So it's a dual capsule, and both sides of the capsule can pick up at the same time a cardioid pattern. And there's a little tiny mini XLR output on the side. The little button pops off of it, and you hook up a second XLR cable. It comes with a small adapter,
Oh,
and you can
wow.
run in true stereo. So say I wanted to record the overhead of a piano or do drum overheads, I can take that mic and put it on its side just like this, and get a really nice stereo signal out of a single source. Get a true, and it's true stereo. So um, it's not like software stereo imaging, and it does come with a software plugin where if you run both capsules, you can actually adjust the polar pattern as a plugin after the fact, which is really cool. So say I wanted to record my acoustic guitar or my bluegrass quartet or something and have it
Right.
dead center, I can you know change the polar pattern or what you perceive to be the polar pattern with this plugin that it comes with. That gets out in the weeds a little bit, but
Yeah.
just being able to record something in stereo, with a nice acoustic guitar, I get some, if I'm like the room I'm in, I get some really cool room ambient noise sounds from that, and then I get the nice pickup of basically like AB miking an acoustic guitar. I'm primarily an acoustic guitar player with the groups I play with now, so it's been really nice for me, and I have some nice spaces in my house, so getting some of the characteristics of the room mixed with the acoustic guitar setting, it's really really cool. And you know that wasn't something that was on anybody's radar in the 60s. You're not going to get that with the U47 or
No.
U87. So maybe the
Well,
U207 10 years from now, but I don't know.
well, it's that I see. I didn't know that feature set on the 640. So that's
It's real
really
cool.
fascinating to be able to do that stereo thing, um, especially in the context of we see a lot of content creators online,
Mm-hmm.
and we're seeing more and more complex setups for YouTubers and content
Sure.
creators. Um, just referencing, that pedal show. If you watch any of the shows where they talk about their setup and what they go through to get the audio that they get, it's a wild setup. And one of the things they do is they close mic amps, but they also do a mid side in the room to capture the sound of the room and mix that
Mm-hmm.
in. Well, suddenly you've got a microphone that you can capture room stereo and get a stereo image of the room sound in one microphone, and that's really kind of an incredible thing.
Yeah.
I love seeing technology like that, and I had to look it up while you were talking, because that's what I do. I Google things while I podcast, y'all. If you're not hip to that, that's how things happen around here. But yeah, it's just this tiny little cap that pops off the side and an adapter plugs
Mm-hmm.
in. That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's we make it accessible, right? So it's $8.99.
Yeah,
Buyers today. No, it's. I mean, it's hundred. It's
and that
because
one comes
I'm
with a
not.
case. It's not wood, but
Yeah, it comes with like an ATA molded. It looks
yeah,
like something you would put like a pistol in to go take it on
yeah,
a. I guess you can take those on plane. They have to be checked or something like that. I don't know. I'm
yeah. I
not a
have
gun
no
guy,
idea.
so. But yeah, I mean, it looks like one of those like injection molded like TSA style cases. So, but yeah, it's like $900, and what's a 414 go for these days? And I love AKG mics. The guy I play with, my friend Jeff, we play in a duo together, and he's had a 414 XLS. No, I'm sorry, the XL2, the one with has the C12 style capsule. It's a great
Oh
mic.
yeah.
It sounds really, really good. Also comes with the shock mount. Also comes with the case. But it's like $1,200 or $1,300. I
Yeah,
think they're like
1280.
$1,279. Yeah, right. So it's a great mic, but this is less expensive and it can do way more. And the nice thing is, we don't sell them as a matched pair because any two you buy are a matched pair. So you
Yeah,
don't have to drop
if you want a matched pair of
$2,500.
AKG 414s, you're going to pay a premium, 2740
Mm-hmm.
for a matched
Yeah,
pair.
and if you buy one tomorrow, one of ours tomorrow, you buy another one 3 years from now. it's
Well,
the,
it's
it's
good
the
to know
same.
that if I want a second one of
Yeah.
these, I can get a second one to match pair, and I bet these would make really good overheads too. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about things I want to do with them now.
My friend Tony uses a set of these for overheads for a choir. He does a lot of he's a front of house engineer, does a lot of live sound stuff. So he uses a set of 440s for that,
Oh,
and
that's
he loves
super
them.
cool.
Yep.
So my wife expressed interest this past week. I've tried to get her into guitar or bass, not force her, but like, hey, if you ever wanted to play, and she's like picked up guitar for a day, started strumming songs, and I was like, that was fun, and then never did it again. Like, did not care about it. I was like, I hate you right now because that took me months when I started learning guitar. But
That's
she
baby steps.
what's that?
Baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. Well, she expressed interest in playing drums, and I was like, "Well, we've got a drum kit." Now, the one thing she has not let me do, and I understand, she has not let me set up the acoustic drum set in the house. She was like, "I will deal with all the guitars and all the basses. The sound of just drums by themselves drives her crazy." So she's not into it. But I was like, "Does this mean I get to set up the drums?" And then like the first thing I'm thinking now is like, "Oh, how am I going to mic up the drums? I want to record with the drums." So I'm like, where am I going to put them in the house? She said, "Whoa, but if I do, and let's be honest, listeners, I'm going to set them up, right? We know this. Like, there's no question here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I'm thinking, how am I going to mic them? Because I'm going to want to obviously do some recording with the drums and get some sounds and see what's going on. So, and I've been using a pair of small diaphragm condensers that I love, that I tell people about all the time. They're PV, and so that's that instant gut reaction of, oh God, no, oh no. They're these PVM 280s, small diaphragm condensers, and I love those
Mm-hmm.
microphones. But yeah, now I'm thinking I need to grab a second one of these and put those up, and give that a shot, because I actually did not, before this one came in, I did not have a non-tube large diaphragm condenser anymore. I've only got one other condenser, and it's a tube condenser by Bee's Knees microphones.
Mm-hmm.
Love that company as well. I think they make some really really cool stuff, but they are very rooted in the traditional style of microphone. They're not
Sure.
really pushing the envelope. They're very warm audio style. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's what I love about. Uh, that's the addictive thing about microphones, though. Talking about the match pairs, like once you get one, you're like, oh, I need another. I got to try to do this. I got to do this. Now my brain is in. I have hoarder brain when it comes to music gear.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm like, oh, I've got all these microphones. I'm going to set up a loop, and I'm going to set up my amp, and I'm just going to start swapping microphones out and see how they all sound different. And so now this is a terrible, terrible episode for me, because I had just gotten to where I'm like, I think I'm done with guitar pedals. I don't need any guitars. I think I'm done with amps. Good, I can stop spending money.
Yeah.
Damn
I'm
it.
just about done with amps.
Now it's microphones.
Yeah. No, I have some more things I want to buy. Definitely pedals. I mean, I unloaded a ton of pedals in the last couple of years, but I just got a Bonsai, bought a new another Nobles, and then some other stuff. But I got one more amp to go. I'm pretty much done with guitars too. So
What's the amp? What's the amp?
it's
Yeah, we're
it's
gonna talk about
a
this.
train
We
wreck.
gotta.
We can, yeah.
Yes.
I
Let's
yeah.
talk about this, Kyle. Sorry. So I'm calling out Kyle for a second. Kyle, Patreon supporter.
Hi,
Actually,
Kyle.
Kyle is my OG Patreon supporter. He was the first, so he's been with the podcast the longest. Uh, And Kyle and I have gone down the train wreck rabbit hole recently, talking about the differences and talking about. We watched Keith's short history of train wreck amps, and we've both concluded that Ken Fisher was a lunatic. Um, but he was a lunatic that made amazing amps. Like who knows if half the things he thinks mattered. But the fact of the matter is he made incredible amplifiers. And so Kyle was thinking about trying to build a train wreck, and then you messaged me that you're like, "Hey, I just got word that you're getting a train wreck built."
Yep. Yeah, I finally got a hold of the guy JM who is making the Trainwreck branded stuff. You know, he knew Ken and the Fisher family
Yep.
for a long time, and he's actually making Trainwreck uh Trainwreck amps. It's not
Yeah.
licensed. It's, you know, the real deal. He's making a lot, you know, and they're fundamentally the exact same um, circuits as Ken was making. I'm actually getting a slightly different one, maybe a little more usable for like modern standards. I'm a player, man. I don't, you know, like um, back to the democratization thing. I don't covet gear. You know, and I like to use the tools I buy.
Yes.
Um,
I tell
and
people that my prime directive as a gear buyer is that I
mhm.
don't own anything I won't play live.
Yeah,
That's
100%.
it.
Sure, same here. Yep. Right behind me is a '69 Hummingbird that has been drilled into and had multiple pickups in it because I didn't like the way they sounded live. So,
Oh
like,
wow.
I got a bunch of nice stuff that has just covered in dings and chips and stuff. And I have two little kids, so a lot of it's from them. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, I wanted a train wreck in the worst way. I mean, it's my favorite Helix setting. Um, you know, I've played the Seriatone stuff. I played what's the Fuchs one? I can't remember what it's called.
Oh,
The something 45 Ruby. Is the
that's it.
Ruby?
No,
Yeah,
that's the what? Maybe it is.
I can't remember. And then yeah, the Seratone's the Expression. Oh no, Ruby is the Two Rock one. I played one of those. I mean, there's a lot of good approximations of it, but it's just like
Train
it doesn't have
45 is the Fuchs.
Train 45. That's right. And then you have the uh, you know, all the endless clones and the Comet amps, which are basically Ken licensed. And then there was the Z-Rec, which is
Yeah.
Dr. Z and Ken from, and then they had it was
I
made
came
for
really close to getting a Z-Rec. Like
me
real
too.
close.
Yeah, me too. A few times, and I'm like, yeah, and now I'm like, well, now I can get the real deal, and I can
Yeah.
actually have a couple mods done that make it a little more usable for what I'm looking to do. You know, like it will take pedals a little bit better, and it's got a more usable EQ and
Hmm.
like that sort of thing. So it's, you know, it's like a dream. It's a dream amp,
Yeah.
and like I don't care if it's, oh well, it's not using the NOS whatever capacitor and like the hand cold forged in the fires of Mount Doom power transform. Whatever, dude. Who cares? Does it sound good, and is it built well, and will it last a long time? That's what I
So
care about.
I have this like I feel like Ken Fisher and Alexander Dumble were in sort of like the same camp of like hyper obsessed lunatic amp builder. And I say
Mm-hmm.
lunatic not as a derogatory term, but as a they're just that was their thing, and like they went down some like really intense rabbit holes of what they believed
Sure.
constituted good design. And it's funny to hear the difference between the two of them, though, because with Ken Fisher, it was all about this part sounds better, and like his ears heard like these micro differences in it's like Eric Johnson and the battery brand in his
Sure.
fuzz face. Whereas like everybody gets all bent out of shape. Oh, it's not the right transformer. Well, Alexander Dumble put Music Man transformers in his Dumble amps. Like he would
Sure.
literally gut Fender and like yes, it matters, but I don't know if it matters in the way that you think it matters.
Well, it doesn't, right? Like the individual things don't matter,
Yeah,
but then you add up the sum of all the parts, right?
right.
And that's the thing, right? And you know, I think some good side effects of that are, you know, their attention to detail. You know,
Yeah.
if you obsess over like a what's it, silver mica cap that much, where it comes from, that means you're putting that same level of attention to detail in everything else that you're doing. And I think that makes a difference because you're less prone to mistakes. You're more careful with your soldering iron. Um, you know, there's stuff that can be said about like, you know, how pedantic does it need to be, but you know, if you're continuously improving your designs, if you can make it better, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I think as long as you're continuing to put stuff out, iterate all you want on it. You know, like stuff gets better over time. Period. It comes back to what we were talking about. You know, we do it in a different way. We don't have people, you know, obsessing over soldering points because everything is automated. But like,
Right.
you know, if we can make something better, why the hell wouldn't we? We do. You know, Lewitt does. Like, you know, we, you know, when we come out with a new model, we take the things that we learned that we didn't do right or could have done better before and made them better this time. You know, we have a new live mic coming out that it's kind of, you know, epitomizes that. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's yeah, and maybe that's another thing we should bring up. Or I'd like to bring up anyways. You know, we have a lot of studio products, but we also have a full line of live mics, and there's so much to unpack about like, you know, how many times can you remake a 57 or you know, like what are, you know, what, how can you make a condenser mic on stage sound good? You know, they're thought they're
Oh,
too sensitive.
that's a
There's
big
so
challenge. That's so
yeah.
let's stop there for just a second because the condenser mic live on stage has always been like even when I was in school 20 years ago. Oh God, that hurt to say. Um,
Mm.
you know, that's been the conversation because obviously we know condenser mics they just pick up better detail, they get better sound. You know, I won't say better, you know, dynamic mics have their place, but there's a thing to the condenser sound. And they're so hard to get that on stage because of bleed and volume levels and all that kind of stuff. But then I saw a rig rundown, Premier Guitar, actual rig rundown, cut trademark, you know. Uh, I people get are weird when I say that. Like that if you try to call your thing a rig rundown, they're gonna tell you that's trademark. That's them. Anyway, neither here nor there. Of Tab Benoit. I don't know how familiar you are with Tab Benoit.
Hmm.
Blues guy out of Louisiana, killer player. He actually apologized at the top of the rig rundown because he was like, "This is going to be the shortest rig rundown ever." Because he literally plays two guitars. They are both uh, thin line Tele Customs, 72, the humbuckers. I don't know if I think one's a 71, maybe 72. Anyway, neither here nor there. He plays two of those into um, category 5 amplifiers. And one is essentially a super reverb, one's essentially a twin reverb, and he runs them both at the same time. And that's his
Hmm.
entire rig. That's it. But the thing I found the most interesting was he does not let front of house engineers mic both amps. He has a condenser microphone that he places between the amps, and that's his sound. That's
Cool.
I was like, nobody who's doing that? Nobody else is doing that. But he was like, I don't want them trying to mix them to balance them. He said they sound the way they sound. He's like, I don't want to trust this audio engineer to have to try to balance these sounds because that's not it. That's not his tone. His tone is the way
Sure.
they're set on stage. So he puts one microphone. Uh, I think he actually said he puts one behind the amp in some clubs, as well. But I that concept of getting the condenser mic on stage is hard.
Yeah.
So how have y'all approached it?
Well, you know, it's it's funny how it's hard, but it's really. I mean, trying to think of how I want to answer this. You know, you can tune a capsule to be as sensitive as you want it to be. You can
Right.
change its frequency response. You can change its, you know, input sensitivity. You can shock mount it internally to reduce stuff like handling noise. Um, you know, you can change how wide or how narrow its polar pattern is, and that kind of stuff is great for things like feedback rejection. Um, we currently make two handheld condensers. Well, we make one and a half.
Okay.
I'll qualify that in a second. So we make the MTP 350CM, which is a handheld condenser, very similar, um, to a lot of the just in terms of fundamental design. It's internally shock mounted, takes 48 volts. I remember the size of the capsule, but it's sensitive. It picks up tons of detail. It's a great mic. I have one. I mainly use a dynamic live, but I've used this one a few times. It's great. It sounds really good. It's $150, which is about $100 cheaper than the most comparable Shure, which is the Beta 87A.
Right.
Yeah, it sounds great.
And even cheaper than the comparable Sennheiser, which I think is their E965.
It sounds about right. I think the 965 is the 935 is their higher end dynamic.
Yeah, that's I use the Sennheiser 935s live.
Mm-hmm.
Love
great
those microphones.
Yeah, I used one for years. And there's like I said, I mean, there are tons of great mics from what people consider competitors to us, and they all do a different thing. And then we have a new mic coming out. This is the half because it's not quite out yet. It'll be out, I think, we're releasing in October. But it is the replacement for our original high end handheld, which was about $600 at the time. The MTP 940. I think that was what it was. 940 CM. This is the MTP W950. If you go on Lewitt's website, you can check it out. So this was developed by a front of house engineer who happens to be our product manager, and he took everything he could possibly want out of a high performance handheld condenser mic. What would the front of house engineer's wish list be? Super sensitive, capture every detail, great feedback rejection. You can put it in front of one of those, and I have a one of those like portable line arrays, like the sticks, right? Not the Bose one. I don't like the Bose L1. I use I have one of those RCF branded ones, which are great. It's phenomenal. It sounds really good. It's like they say it's 1,000 watts. It's that's what the amp can make.
Right.
Wattage on PA speakers is never accurate, but it sounds really good. And I borrowed a prototype just to basically stress test it because I play a lot of gigs. And man, it was the best sounding mic I've ever heard live. Like I've never sounded that good. It was I was really impressed. And it's shock mounted to hell. Like, I mean, you can, if you open up the top of the grill, you can wiggle the thing around. It has like a big rubber, like it looks like a camera aperture. And you can move it around. It has a convex grill to the capsule. So if you unscrew like the actual main grill, there's like another little grill inside, and it's convex, and it's hydrophobic because using a handheld mic live and you have it up against your face,
right,
all night long, it gets exposed to a ton of moisture, and that can cause anything from shorts to like corrosion. So this is hydrophobic, and it won't, moisture won't pool there, and it will just extend the life of the microphone and continue to capture all that like high-end definition and nuance of voice. It also has you can change the I think it's supercardioid to cardioid, or it's cardioid to supercardioid. You can change the polar pattern. You can pad it. There's a little pad inside. Like if you unscrew the top of the grill, there's little switches inside you can change. And then what's really cool is you can actually remove the entire capsule and put it on top of any, I think it's the Shure style wireless threading, and you can get an adapter to make it fit a Sennheiser wireless system. So if you want to use your existing wireless with one of our capsules, you can do that. It's really cool.
That is wild.
Yeah. So that's that basically. I mean, it has competition in that price point. I think we're going to sell it for about $800. But you have the Shure KSM 9, KSM 11, the Neumann KMS 184, I think. There are a lot of mics out there. I can't remember all the names.
Yeah, it's a lot of numbers too. I was sitting here
Yeah.
actually when you were trying to come up with the model numbers. I was like, God, we have thrown out so many model numbers on this episode.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start. I can start making shit up.
Yeah,
Then we
exactly.
can. You'll never
It'll be
know.
fine.
No, the Shure is the KSM. The Neumann is the KMS. We have the
Yeah.
MTP, so you at least know it's Lewitt. So yeah, that's our new flagship, and it's going to be on a bunch of tours. We've been beta testing it with a bunch of front of house engineers now, people who are using it on tour, and it's gotten really, really good reception so far. So I think this is kind of a big moment for us. When this comes out, I'm sure you'll see a lot of summer tours next year with these on riders. So it's really cool. It's really great to see.
Oh, that's awesome.
And our like live dynamic mics are awesome. Like, my go-to, the number one handheld mic, which I play guitar when I sing, so it's always on a stand. So it's handheld in theory, standheld in practice. It's the MTP 550 DM, and it's like $130. And it's spec'd better than a lot of the competition, or than any of the competition really, because we don't have the same brand recognition in the US like Shure or Sennheiser. So how do we show up? Well, we make stuff to the best we possibly can, and a lot of the time the spec is better, and we don't charge the same kind of prices. So you're really getting super good quality stuff for either the same or less money. And we have a dynamic instrument mic, the MTP 440 DM, which I think I'll have you check out. It's really, really good. I use one of those too. It's easy to get for me. I haven't had too many problems getting our mics, so I don't know why. Must be lucky,
a guy. That's just what I tell people. I know a guy.
I got a guy. He's me. But yeah, it's.
Well, that's another thing. That's another thing worth talking about that I meant to mention earlier when we were talking about the comparison game. There's also the pricing of those companies, the Neumanns, the Schures, even the Sennheisers, especially folks like Royer. They're pricing at a name as well. They've got the baggage of a company that's been around and expected to be a certain thing, that there's going to be a price tag that comes with that name. Because, and I've had this conversation with a couple of pedal manufacturers and a couple of people in other industries, not necessarily musical instruments, but who want to, they're trying to start at this business selling this thing, and they give me their price. I especially had this in food, but it's in some other industries where they'll like tell me their price, and I'm like, well, how much does it cost you to make? And they'll tell me that, and I'm like, well, how much time does it take you to make? And they'll tell me that, and I'll be like, okay, we do the math, and I'm like, here's the price you should be selling this for. Oh, well, I don't have a name, I don't have this recognition, I don't have. Yeah, but if you start here, you will be seen as cheap, and people will overlook you.
Sure.
Like, if you're making a quality product, you need to price at a quality price. Now, and Lewitt has microphones at a lot of different price points. And actually, I think it's really impressive for a new company, the array of microphones that y'all already have. I don't know how old Lewitt actually is, because like you said, they're still kind of new coming to the US. How old is Lewitt as a company?
Oh, it's about 340. I'm just kidding. I started in 2009. So
we were making microphones out of animal skins.
Oh yeah. It's our original capsule was elk hide. No, Lewitt was founded in 2009, and I think they they really took off in the last few years. They made some great products, and they were carried in stores. In the US, there was distribution. So at least since 2011, I think, was when they were first in the US. If our CEO is listening, Roman, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I don't quite remember, but I was like 26 at the time, so don't hold it against me. But yeah, we went from very, very, very small, very niche. Because how many? Everyone knows one microphone company in Austria, and they're no longer there. AKG,
right?
They're they're owned by Harman, which in turn is owned by Samsung. But yeah, I mean, at the time, we were the new kid on the block, and our founder and still current CEO Roman, he came from AKG. He was an engineer there, and he wanted to do something that was, different. And this was a dream he had to that not everything that could be done with microphones has been done yet, and he was right. Which is great for me because I have a job because of that. But yeah, I mean, there's some great stuff that and it's still we're coming out with 3 new products this year. That handheld I was telling you about, and some other stuff that we'll be announcing some of later this month, at the end of this month, or August 30th. So keep your eyes and ears open for that one. Lewitt will be announcing something on the 30th of this month, I think. And then
that's rad.
Something quite a bit different later in the beginning of Q4 in October. So anyway, there's lots of fun stuff coming out. But, they're still trying to push the boundaries of, what mics can do, and doing really innovative things still. So, but yeah, since 2009. And where are we going with this? Sorry.
I was just basically talking about how y'all have got a whole lot in a short period of time, and you don't have the baggage of having to be this thing. Because there's baggage. Gibson deals with the baggage all the time.
Sure. Well, we don't have a heritage to be drawn against on us, right?
Right.
And we have a big name in lots of places. So we're sold in over I think it was 170 countries or something like that. You can buy a Lewitt product, in pretty much all the Americas, and then all the countries in the Americas. There's only 2 or 3 if you count Central America. But yeah, I mean, you can buy a mic in Canada, you can buy a Lewitt mic in the US, you can buy one in Brazil. Lewitt Bolivia is quite active on Instagram.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is interesting. So that's fun. We have a distributor down there who does a great job with marketing, all through Europe. And China is a huge market for us. We sell a lot of our microphones in China. It's very, very common. You'll see tons of stuff coming from their streaming and social media channels. It's a really popular mic for streaming, and we've shipped and sold over 1 million products, and just in the last few years, which when I found that out, blew my mind. That's a lot of product.
That is a lot of product, and I'm just being really honest. That was a lot more than I expected. I knew it was a worldwide thing, and when I say the baggage of a bigger company, I mean more of the, like Gibson has to deal with the fact. Okay, when I got a tour of Gibson Garage with Ryan from 60 Cycle Hum, and Mark Agnesi showing us around, and he's talking about burst in particular, because obviously everyone wants to talk about burst when you talk Gibson. And he was talking about how they were doing these 3D laser modeling of the bursts that they have. They bought a few back, and they have a few. And at first I was like, oh, obviously for historic reissues and things like that. He said, well, no. He said, we've got about 80 something great scans for dimensions of the guitar, weight of guitar, you know what I mean? All those things. Like a headstock has to be cut just like this. He said, now we're scanning for things like getting the right font on the treble bass ring around the pickup selector. He said, because people get mad if the font is slightly incorrect. I say incorrect. You know what I mean? Because it changed over the years.
Oh, yeah.
But it's that level of the expectations and the price point that comes with living up to those expectations. And I really appreciate what Lewitt's doing. And now that this is what I was going to mention. I wanted to mention earlier, and we're nearing the end, so I'm going to sneak this in before we go over to the Patreon episode.
Sure.
Y'all also, I've noticed it recently. Because getting ready for this episode, I tried to do I try to be a good podcaster and do some research.
I appreciate
figure out
that.
some things. Yeah, I've done a bad job. It's fine. It's great. But on social media, Lewitt puts out a lot of really interesting and helpful like studio tip videos and miking videos and things. I like that you're not just out there to sell the product. You're out there. There's a separate ed- education feels like such a strong word.
Sure.
It's not like a formalized education, but there's this helping creators create atmosphere with Lewitt that I really have gotten to love in the last couple of months as I've really been digging in. Is that like an active? Obviously, it's active, but is that like a core
Oh, 100%.
principle of the company?
Yeah, I mean, gatekeeping serves nobody other than somebody wanting to be selfish with their, with their egos and withholding information. It's super lame, right? Um,
Yeah,
you're not helping people get better. You're not driving the craft of recording any further by withholding information or, like lording some kind of dark art knowledge of like mastering or something over somebody's head. That it helps nobody. And sharing a knowledge base with people who know what they're doing only makes for better recordings for everybody, right?
yeah,
Maria, who is often the subject of our videos that are made in Vienna, she's fantastic. She runs our social media accounts, and she went to SAE, the audio engineering school. They're all over the world. But yeah,
yeah.
she's awesome. She totally knows way more than I could ever hope to learn. And she's
Oh no, she's definitely got her chops together
yeah.
from everything I've watched. There's a couple that I watched and I just went, I had no idea
Oh yeah,
that
no. If
that
I have
was like
questions, I
that.
ask her.
That was how you do this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and if there's something I don't know about audio engineering, she is the first person I think of to ask. Right. Um, and then there's Brian, who's on my team. He's based in the Boston area, and he's my channel marketing manager. I mean, he's the guy who helps us get promos together for like Sweetwater, or we'll put together video or image assets for like Vintage King. And he does really
Yeah,
amazing content. And he freelances for Isotope, and he used to work there when I used to work there. So that's how we knew each other. His video content's also very, very good. And I like the fact that we have we have some pretty like unique and distinctive flavors of our content. The stuff that comes from our Viennese headquarters it's really quirky and fun, and it's engaging, and it kind of holds your attention. Taking yourself too seriously is pretty lame, and they do a really good job of
yeah,
having fun with it. Like I a lot of the time I'll watch a video that Maria and her team, my team in Vienna did, and I've chuckled a few times, and then I've learned something. That's awesome. When I can actually,
yeah,
when I can get some useful or insightful information and do it while laughing, that's pretty rare. And then Brian is super he's super informative, and he explains stuff in a way that doesn't sound like he's talking down to you, even though he knows way more than I'll ever know. um I think that our our content game is pretty strong, and it can
yeah,
continue to get better, and we are planning on expanding our knowledge base, our blog and our video resources to cover more topics than just like microphones. And you've seen that happen, especially this year. Like we've branched out into like you know uh, just how what were some of the best ways to distribute your music for free. Like do we want to
right.
use United Masters and they take a cut or something like that. Like one of my other marketing managers, Will, is doing a really comprehensive blog post about this. So there's like all sorts of stuff that we're really digging into, like how to tune a room properly, or how to make the best of your recording space, or talk about signal chain with outboard gear. So we want people who follow Lewitt. um Even if you're not a customer, we still want to help you get the best possible sound. And one of the core tenets, and like one of our like what's the phrase, one of our core beliefs is that great sounds for everybody. And they actually
Yeah,
and I'm really proud to work for a company that actually kind of lives that. It's not just
yeah,
like some empty meaningless gesture. Like they everybody from me and my team in the US to all the people in Vienna, we do everything with a purpose that we just want to make you sound better. Whether you're using a Lewitt mic or you're doing mastering, or you want to get just the best possible service to distribute your masters.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And that's how you build community. And
Sure.
that's how whether you're a customer or not. And I love companies that do that. Um, they're the companies I want to work with, and I get excited about hearing what they're doing, because they're interested in the art, maybe even a little more than the gear. Obviously, they're a company that needs to make money. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
pretend they're not. I mean, Lewitt is a company that is in business to make great microphones and make money doing it, because people got to eat, right?
Sure.
But also you want to build that community and build the creation of art, and I love that. That's a big belief of mine. It's the reason, even when I have people from companies on this show, we talk more about the industry and about us as people and the stories we make, because that's who makes music. Gear doesn't make the music. People make the music. Where the gear is there to help them, and I like companies that embrace that philosophy, that it isn't just about me convincing you to buy XYZ that I sell. It's me helping you do what you do. And
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful way to do it, and I love it.
Well, we want to serve our customers, but we want to serve the community as a whole, right? And
Yeah,
hopefully, if you own a Lewitt microphone, and you're looking on how, looking up how to get your music out there, it would be great if one of the first places you went to go look was our blog. That would be
right.
an amazing feeling for me, knowing that somebody who's familiar with our brand looks to us as a resource for that. And it would make me feel even better as somebody who, if somebody who never owned a Lewitt before did the same thing, and then maybe hopefully when they were in the market for a new microphone, we were their first choice because they trust us enough to kind of help steer them in the right direction along their journey on recording knowledge. You know, it's important to me personally and professionally, obviously, because
Yeah.
I work for a microphone company, but I feel good about what we do every day, and in some other jobs I've had in the past, that there have been times where I haven't felt great. Like going to bed
Sure.
at night, I'm just like, ugh, I had to kind of spin that pretty. I haven't experienced that here, and I don't think I ever will, which is great.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, we're going to wrap this episode up. We're going to go over to the Patreon episode. Patreon supporters, thank you for your support. You literally make this show happen. Gonna call y'all out, and thank you for your support. And if you want me to say your name at the end of episodes, you should also become a Patreon supporter by going over to patreon.com/40watt podcast. That is /40, the numbers, not the word. I didn't think that out. My apologies. So patreon.com/40watt podcast. You can support the show just like my Patreon supporters: Andy Koenig, David Ishizaka, Jeffrey Walks, Jim Burns, Kyle Benton, Kyle Harris, Rick Calhoun, Scott Hamilton, and Tom Kelly, all at the medium wattage level. And at the $10 level, Ben Fair and Heath Batt. Thank you all for your support. I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, um, Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Oh,
And
thanks so much for having me.
man, I'm so glad to have you on. Actually, hold on. I need to do a thing.
Sure.
Um, Patreon supporters, I keep meaning to. I normally do this. I'm going to back up because I make mistakes. On that list of Patreon supporters, that is David Ishizaka of the Timber Owls. That is Rick Calhoun of Honey Picks, Scott Hamilton of the Effects Loop podcast, and that is Ben Fair of Electromotive Sound Company Pedals. I like to make sure to shout out the companies that folks are from, so that you can go patronize them since they patronize me. And that's just how this works. It's a lot of give and take there. In the meantime, y'all, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to quit talking. Otherwise, I'll just keep going and not have anything left for the Patreon episode. So, Y'all be good to yourselves, be kind to each other, and make some noise.